This is Eddie Daniels, and I am here in the studio this afternoon with our good friend here at the station, Mitch McVicker. Many of you know Mitch as a very talented singer-songwriter, and many of you may not know the fact that a few years ago we lost a very talented man in the music industry. His name was Rich Mullins, and Mitch and Rich were actually together in the car when the accident happened. They were traveling together. Of course, that was where we lost Rich Mullins, and Mitch was pretty banged up too. It's been a long, hard struggle, I think, for Mitch to recover, and he's back on the road again, and his singing is pretty much almost back to where it was. We'll talk about that a little bit more with Mitch. But first of all, Mitch, I just want to thank you once again for stopping by the station. It's always a pleasure to get to talk to you.
Thank you for saying that. If you knew me, you probably wouldn't like me near as much.
Your newest CD, Chasing the Horizon, and I look at the credits on there, and I see Mark Robertson, and I see Steve Hinalong, Cobra Joe, and just that must have been cool to work with all these people.
Amazing musicians. Phil Madeira. Dennis Holt, Ricky Michelle, Rick Elias. People that have just been doing it for a long time. And towards the end of the project, when it was done, I looked back at stuff, and I'm like, wow, this sounds amazing. Pretty much because Phil or Dennis put in those hours of practice when they were 17 years old, and now they've been doing it for 30 or 40 more years, and it's amazing. I feel very humble. It's a humbling experience to just go, okay, here's the songs, and then they do that with them and make them great, and go, well, okay, what am I going to do? Maybe I can do some hand claps on this song. A lot of the songs were written in my recovery time from the accident that I was involved in with Rich, and a lot of that was just kind of more or less a therapy thing for me to write songs and go, okay, I'm going to get back to the point where I can do this, and because I was pretty far down. I mean, singing wise, my voice was about to like 15% of what it is now, probably, and just other physical things I wasn't doing real good, but I was writing songs because it's something I could do, and something that I was hoping for. I'm hoping that I can play this song for people someday, at some point.
You're on the road right now with Brad Layer, whom I met last time you were around.
Right.
And Brad, he plays guitar, he sings, he plays the hammered dulcimer. Is it hammered dulcimer or hammered dulcimer? Hammered dulcimer. I was wrong on that one.
I'm absolutely loving the ensemble and how it's come together, and the energy that's there. And I'm very thankful. I know that I'm very fortunate to be in the position to get to work with those guys.
Speaking of touring, the Lemonade song has kind of become an underground hit for you. It's not a song that you just sing and you say, oh yeah, it's a nice song. It's a song you actually have to think about.
A lot of people that have said they have theological problems with that song, and I'm like, well, you know what? If you were listening to me for theology, it would be a painful situation. I wrote it as a parable, and like I've said, it just ended up being a stupid song. But it is probably one of the more angry songs I've ever written. But it has this kind of goofy little line at the end of it where I go, everything's going to be okay, and that's pretty much the basis of the song. This guy has been beat up, torn apart, broken down by life, and yet everything is going to be okay because he understands that he is loved, and he understands that he gets to love also, and yes, that is more important than going to church. And I'm not going to say that's definitely not the theme of the song, for the church is the body of Christ. But you know what? God's love transcends all our attempts at religion, be it Methodist, Catholic, Judaism, atheism, whatever we come up with. God's love transcends all that, and And the character in this song, Jim, I think somehow had a grasp on that notion, though I don't think he knew he had that.
The song talks about how, you know, the people are striving for religion, and almost like the Pharisees, how as long as their appearance is good, then they must be better than, or they must be doing it right. And you think sometimes people, it hits a little too close to home?
I think I think maybe sometimes it does. Because Paul says, when we try to become good by following the rules that we come up with, we separate ourselves from Christ. We have fallen away from grace. Mm-hmm. That's how we separate ourselves from Jesus. So I guess it's not the smoking, drinking, and cussing that we thought it was. So I think that the question is then, what rules do each of us go by? Because we all have them. We all have these rules that we go by and we won't break, and we hold on to, and we trust that that's where our identity is coming from, when in essence it's coming from a God who really doesn't care about what we come up with. He's more concerned with loving our souls, and our souls loving God back. What's palatable may not be what we need to hear.
Jim came walking down the road singing songs and humming on hymns.
Every time you see Mitch in an interview, or maybe read an article about Mitch, you can't help but also hear or read about Rich Mullins, because of course they were great friends, and they were in the car accident together that took Rich's life. I don't know how I don't want to say I feel for you, but is it to the point now when people, you know, the first thing, you know, when they say Mitch McVicker, the guy who was with Rich Mullins when he passed away, are you at the point now where you're like, you know, I love Rich and I love our relationship, but do you feel like you're always, you know, like Marsha, you know, do you feel it's like, you know, I'm my own person?
Yeah, I do feel that way, and I have felt that way for 3 years since the wreck. For a lot of times, people were wanting me to fill the void that Rich left, and I wasn't interested in doing that. And I felt if I did, that it would be the wrong thing to do. For the void was there because of who Rich was, and he was pushing me towards doing this, and I'm simply doing what I was heading towards anyway. And there's no doubt that I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for Rich. There's no doubt that I've gleaned an unbelievable amount from him in music, just musically, songwriting wise, and just how to go about life. A year or two ago, and even on today, the transition is happening where people are starting to be more familiar with me and my music, and then it's like, oh, you were with Rich. Oh, I can see that, or I didn't know that. But initially it was, that's why people were familiar with me, and I'm fine with that, because that's a way for Rich's impact to continue, for him to keep influencing people. But I too have been wanting to get to the point where I go, I can do this.
I think I read a quote by you saying that Rich was your biggest fan.
Yeah, that's pretty much why I was playing with him. It's not because I was a good musician or anything. I mean, I was basically a young kid that he took a chance on because he liked hanging out with me, and who knows why. But so he decided to let me play some songs in his concert, and he was my biggest fan. He did push me harder than anybody towards doing music, and he is why I am doing it. He's my. People ask me who my influences are. Various people I've listened to that I've drawn stuff from and that I like. But Rich is my inspiration.